everyone. Today I have the honor and privilege of talking to Devin Murphy and Devin's new book, I'm going to try not to get a glare, The Boat Runner. It's on my audio because I've been listening to books, but oh my gosh, Devin, I was so thrilled when you said yes to talking about this book. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
This book, is this your debut novel?
It is, yes.
I thought so because when I looked you up, I was like, no way is this a debut novel. No way. But it is.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I've been in it for quite a while, so it just hit the shelves on September 5th, which is a week ago. So it's been kind of a crazy, fun, really emotional week. So I'm really excited to see it out there.
Yeah, I've been, as a matter of fact, after we chatted on Facebook, I saw you all over the place. I was like, wow, this book is really, really picking up steam. And that's why I'm really happy to talk about it right now, because you've gotten a lot of good press. In case you don't know, you're like all over my Facebook. So it's pretty cool.
Everything's new to me. I'm kind of on a steep learning curve of putting a book out in the world. But I had a really great agent and editor and publishing house behind me. So I'm just kind of thrilled with everything. I'm really pretty lucky.
Yeah. And like I said, I listened to it, and the guy that did it, I'm trying to think of his last name, Matthew Watterson. This guy is so good. He had me on the edge of my seat, and he's a popular guy, but to do the accents, he did, it was just, so for everybody out there who likes to listen to audiobooks like I do, go get the audiobook because he is amazing. He really is. You got really lucky because sometimes it matters. It really does. It matters who does the audiobook. So
I agree. I have a really kind of crazy commute I do a few times a week, and so audiobooks keep me sane. And I get a stack of them if I don't like the voice. It's like, next. I was sent by the audiobook company four narrative samples, and they were all amazing. But he was just phenomenal, so that was an easy choice.
Yeah, to really tell. I like when I can tell the characters, because when you're driving and you're listening to it, if you get lost on who's talking, you can kind of, because your mind wanders, you're dealing with traffic, and so when he's doing the characters, like, I really understood who he was talking about. It was very easy to listen to while it was driving. So, but anyway. I have so much to talk to you about this book, okay? We don't give any spoilers away, so we skirt around. But okay, where did you come up with the idea for Jacob? And is this listed as like historical fiction? Is this true? Is there any part of it that's has a true setting or story to it?
Sure, that's a bit of a bigger question. When I sat down to start writing it and it started becoming a novel, this took me about 8 years, and I tell people, it's insane. It took me about 20 to figure out how to write fiction. And the last 8 of that, I was on this project, and in a lot of ways, I didn't set out to write a historical novel by any means. I just set out to write I always wanted to write a novel, and once I finally had one, I started finding research was really something that would help me kind of add nuance and layer and figure out scenes and characterization. So I did a lot of research, and the question that kept coming up was, how would I react with that, or how would one single person survive this type of scenario? And so that taking this huge grand scale of an event and honing it down to just one person's emotional life kept bringing me back to just one character. And once that kind of happened over and over again, it started solidifying as Jacob for me. And then I had my kind of tour of this era,
right?
And really educate myself on the era. But it started off with just being fascinated by a lot of different topics, and then some specific sort of bits of information, pictures, and research kind of zoned me right into this story. And so it was a long time coming, but Jacob kind of slowly emerged out of my research and writing, and then once he kind of locked into the 1940s. Europe, it kind of became a historical novel, to my surprise.
Seriously. Well, and, I've been reading a lot of historical fiction lately, and especially World War II. It's a huge topic out there right now. And I've talked to a couple of the authors about it, and they'll tell me that the reason it's so big right now is because we're losing we're losing World War. So to get the history, if you want to get somebody to talk to that was there, I mean, it's getting tougher and tougher. So everybody's kind of, clamoring on to what they can get out of a historical fiction novel about World War II. But this took on, so I've been reading all these novels and I was like, all right, so this one, every one of them has a different point of view, because there are so many stories you can pull from that war. And so this was my first one of being the Dutch, like dealing with what they had to, because things you don't learn in history. I had no idea exactly what they were dealing with in World War II. And you painted such a great picture of, of how they were, it's a tiny village in Holland, right? Yeah. And how those people were dealing with what was going on and what they were hearing, at that time.
Yeah. So I had a freebie handed to me because my mother's from the Netherlands. She's from Holland. And she was born in 1942 in occupied Netherlands. And so I always kind of in the back of my head heard little stories about that growing up. And just kind of grabbed onto them. And they were just sort of soaked into me. And so when I wanted to start writing, it was a really natural fit for me because I had some interest in the place, I had family connections. And then something interesting you just said about how World War II is so fascinating because we're losing that connection. When I married my wife, she has two grandfathers, and I never knew my grandfather or grandfathers or the grandparents. And so I really got along great with these two grandfathers. And one, Herb Miller, just died a month ago, but he was a World War II vet in the Pacific. He was a frogman, the predecessor to Navy SEALs. And he had all these kind of amazing stories about being a sort of engineer officer / explosive underwater expert. And I would hear the stories and think, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then the other grandfather who's still with us, he was a medic in Europe campaign, and the soldiers went into the death camps, and he came in right after, like minutes after when it was safe, and saw these things, saw these raw images. And so I heard these stories and kind of was so taken back by the immediacy of it and the fact that it was part of their life and affected the rest of their lives that the time frame came alive for me. And now having just lost Herb Miller here, and my kids are young, it's kind of neat because I can maybe bridge that gap of who he was, and he wore his World War II veteran's cap around, and so I can kind of use this story to say, yes, this isn't so far in the past, which is really neat.
Exactly, and his story, Jacob's, is so much different than his story is like completely different than, because it's not like he actually goes and fights for Germany, even though, and I realized like what they had to go through, because especially in the Netherlands and Holland, like they almost had decisions to make. Like they were going to be recruited. They knew they were going to be recruited. So it was like but they didn't really care about Germany that much. They didn't care if Germany won, so it was like, and I thought you did such a good job of showing that struggle of there being like, what does it matter to us? Like what happens, Yeah,
I think my goal was to really find the moral complexity and nuance of just trying to get by in this impossible scenario. And strangely enough, I ended up writing about World War II, and I don't think I've talked about this yet in the interview. One of the real starting points for me in writing this book was I went to graduate school to become a better writer. Like I realized I needed help and I could study and become a better writer. So I went to graduate school, and they said, sure, Devin, you come and we'll pay for graduate school, but you have to go teach our classes, our lower level English class and creative writing. I said, all right, I'll try it. And I loved it, and now I'm a professor, and it was a great turn of events for me. But what I noticed when I started teaching was that my students who were 18 to 22 were not aware that our country had been at war for most of their lives. We've been in Iraq and Afghanistan for most of their lives, and they could tune it out. They could disassociate from it. And I found that really troubling that we have these like comfortable little silos of information that we can exist in and be sort of a little bit ignorant to what else is going on. And so I was realizing that, in the back of the room I had an ROTC student, and I had veterans working on the GI Bill, and I've had some kind of relationships with Army, Navy, and Air Force, and Marine friends that it really deeply affected their lives being in the service. And so to see people not really understanding the scope of world conflicts really troubled me. And so I wanted to, in my writing, show it, make it personal and visceral, and right in somebody's lap.
Right.
And for some reason, I think maybe instead of writing about Iraq or Afghanistan, which I don't have a personal connection to, it was a little easier for me to go to the Netherlands in World War II, where my mother's from, and then I could kind of incorporate those two grandfather stories in my research. So, but it was a weird starting point. It was kind of looking around and realizing that people were so removed from conflict in the world that it's easy to just dismiss it and swipe it away on the screen. But if I could tell a story that made you feel those moral dilemmas, I thought I could do something pretty special.
Yeah, and I'm a mom of two vets, so they both went. Well, they were both during the Iraq War, and the one ended up going to Iraq. So it's pretty personal to me. So I was really involved in being that military mom while they were serving, and and now out of it. They're both out of it. They're in their later 20s, and they're both out now. But so I do kind of hang on to those military stories because for them, both of them could have gone to college. They went right after high school, both of them, and they made that decision. Now they took on the GI Bill. They got their, but they did have a decision to make too. They were not, they didn't have a forced, enlistment. I mean, they got to enlist on their own, and it's something that they had to come to terms with, because it was during the Iraq War, and what were they going to do about it, So I do get that. Like, I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, it kind of does really closely relate to what Jacob was thinking at the time. But his circumstances were a little bit more dire at the I'm like, I swear, as I'm listening to this, I'm like, can anything else happen to this man? I felt so bad for him. But on the other hand, it was probably a very normal, I mean, we take one guy and there were tons of guys like him that were going through what he went through. And, so he wasn't that abnormal, but I was starting to, feel for him at the end. So.
Yeah, there was an early draft of this I shared with a writing friend, and he said something along the lines of, "You really Forrest Gumped this thing. It's going to hit every cultural event of the era." Yeah. And I thought, well, yeah, I don't want to give up on all the research I did, so I had to pick my battles for this Jacob character, and part of me knows as a fiction writer, you want to develop a character you love, and in a way like make them climb a tree and then throw rocks at them. And what are they going to do? You want to cause trouble to their lives and see how they react so you get to know them. And
right.
And I think going back to, what I just said about my students not really knowing the larger world conflicts around, we get this rosy image of the returning vet coming home and the happy dog and mom crying, and they take off the catcher's mask and it's mom coming home from the service. And it's really rosy, but there's how terrifying was it for you when your kids were away, right? And that day reality and emotional weight is sort of easy to forget about, and I didn't think that was right because there's a real cost to that, and so that's why I think this character had a lot of trouble he found. But the time was awful. It was
I know, dark. That's what I mean. It's like, yeah, nobody's going to come out with a great story. Like, I mean, his story was, it's amazing. It's an amazing story, but especially the relationship with his uncle. And I guess one of the questions that I had for you, and now I know, like, I looked up some of the research, and you had spent some time at sea, so it started to make sense as to why you were so familiar with writing about the sea and what they were doing. But in the very beginning, because this isn't going to give away anything, in the very beginning, his uncle, what was the transition like, that his uncle was feeling like he didn't want to participate in the war. He didn't want to. He didn't want to join Germany. He wasn't for the Germans, but he had to act like he was. So, just give me a little bit of background on how you how that fit into the story, because it really does make it very interesting.
Yeah. So, what was really interesting to me is systems of thought of how we think about the world and how information dictates our actions. And at some point, I'm a college professor now, and one of the things a real tenet of my teaching is, take in all the information, decide for yourself.
Right.
Weigh your own mind and your heart, and then act on it, opposed to just repeating one thing you hear because that's easier, and acting on that. And so,
Right.
I guess I wanted to show how propaganda really created the Nazi movement and the German military complex, and it would have been really easy for a lot of people just to accept that. Except if you're actually thinking for yourself and using your heart, you think, well, this is craziness. And Uncle Martin was one of these guys who thinks for himself and doesn't really care what people think of him because he knows what's right and wrong and will proceed first for his family, then for his country, and then for himself. And so he was a really interesting, complex character. It was a lot of fun to write, but also another thing that fascinated me was the Netherlands is right on the border of Germany. Right. And the waterway, the Ems River, which is what I write about, and the Ems estuary out to the North Sea, is where the Uncle Martin's a fisherman. And that border was pretty much uncontested. It was just taken over. And so the Dutch had no choice but to be occupied, except, this Uncle Martin decides I'm going to make a choice. And that really sets the book into motion. So.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved his story. I mean, I don't know. I got really attached to him and his struggle and how he was trying to help the family, how to keep because he didn't really have a family of his own. Is that correct? I mean, their family, Jacob's family was his family. And so he's kind of like really trying to help them and also in doing what he's doing. And, it made for really, I was like thinking, when you researched that, were there people like him? Is that what was going on?
There was all over occupied Europe people who resisted. In fascinating, small to really complex, violent ways. And so I really liked that idea of the decision these people had to make to put their life on the line,
right,
for their beliefs. It's a system of thought that they decided, well, this is wrong, and if I'm looking at the bigger picture, I want to do the moral thing with my life. And so to enact that is really fascinating and courageous. And then there's also this thing that happened with my mother being from the Netherlands. She has 3 sisters that stayed in the Netherlands, and they all had children. And I'm the youngest of, I think, in the teens, it might be 13 or 17 cousins. And so all but my 2 sisters are in the Netherlands. And one of these cousins came over. I admired deeply. He was an older cousin. He was like a rough guy. And at 16, he came to visit us because he got into a little trouble in the Netherlands. And, what's going to happen to this cousin? And he's a big, tough guy. And he went back, and, he's a bouncer now. His name's Jasper, and I love him here. And Jasper was just kind of this, this guy I looked up to. And, okay, now he owns a bar. Okay, now he owns 8 bars. Okay, now he just sold all these bars, and he was the bouncer at all these bars for a whole bunch of money, and he started a construction company to build bars. Now he's got 8 construction companies, and he sold that for a fortune. He retired, and for a hobby, he started to train guard dogs, attack German shepherds, and he trained one. This is a true story. This is my cousin, and he trained one, and he went to a world competition in Canada for police dogs, and he came in 2nd place. And this was his hobby because he retired. He's got the golden touch. And a Canadian officer said, I would like a dog like that. Could you get me one? And he said, sure, how much do you want to pay? And they referenced the amount of money that he said, I fell off my chair because I paid a couple $100 for this dog, and they were going to make a fortune. And so he says, okay, I'll get you this dog. And then the next town calls up in Canada, the next town. And then 9/11 happens, and every country in the world wants guard dogs. And now he supplies most governments and agencies with sniffer dogs. And so this guy Jasper, who's really just a rough and tumble guy, has got the golden touch in everything he does in reality.
Wow.
Comes out golden. And so I really admired this guy, and that he did whatever the hell he wanted, and it always worked out for him because he was just bulldozed through his own mentality. And so that cousin figure was a big part behind that mentality. Was a big part behind Uncle Martin. Right. And I actually wrote in the draft it was Uncle Jasper, but Americans would have said Jasper.
Jasper, yeah.
And I figured I'll just call him something different. So that was really like the real life guy amalgamating with all the research that people did resist. So there was a lot of love for that character when I was writing him.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I just interviewed an author of a book from Van Halen. Okay, so we were just talking about it was so funny how it kind of goes. Like I just did a lot of research on the Netherlands, and he told me that when Eddie and Alex would fight, they always did it in Dutch, and nobody knew what they were saying. So, because that was their native language. So I thought that was kind of cool, and they're kind of talented guys too. So.
Agreed.
But anyway, okay, so you're getting all this, I don't know, you're getting so much success with this book already. And has anybody spoken movie to you yet?
So there's a whole other side of the industry that kind of takes care of that. So I have an agent who takes care of that. So she's got a movie agent that's out there.
Because I see has movie written all over it. I mean,
that would be kind of like you don't think about this when you're writing,
I know.
And it's like I hope I can pull this off, and now it's strange because I literally kind of handed it off to the industry people who are taking care of it with all our best interests in mind. So yeah, there's a movie agent now in play. And
that's awesome. Yeah, because you can so see this character being. I mean, people would love to hang on to this character and through his life. I mean, I just as I'm reading it, that's what I always think about. I'm like, is this going to be a movie? Yeah, this is definitely a movie worthy. So I really hope that works out for you. We'll see. We'll see what time.
That would be wild.
That would be wild. That's right. Especially for a debut novel. Okay, because usually I talk to people and they're like, okay, this is my 15th novel. This is, you are really, really fortunate to have this happen to you. Really.
Yeah, I'm lucky. And, in a lot of ways, I don't want to just say I'm lucky because I teach students all the time.
Work, right.
The reality is this is really hard. And I put my life in service of this task. I told my dad, I'm going to go get a English graduate degree so I can, become a better writer. And he says, well, that's career suicide. And I said, I kind of know. I do it anyways. And so one of the funniest things to write was in the back of the books in the acknowledgement section, I wrote to my mother and father-in-law, thank you for taking a creative writer graduate student into your life. A big risk.
Big risk.
It was, I didn't have a lot of prospects when I met their daughter and married her. So
right.
I'm getting really lucky, but it also, I've been working on this for a long time.
Yeah. You put a lot of work into it. So what are we going to see from you next?
Well, hang tight because I've got a bunch of projects in the work with my agent, and one's ready to go, one's kind of getting there, and I just talked to her the other day about the future here. So it's a lot of exciting stuff. I have historical novel again, a pretty tightly linked sort of story novels. And then I also, you mentioned I spent some time at sea. I have projects about going to sea. Yeah, I'm kind of like a compulsive worker and writer at this point. So I'm going to follow Anthony Trollope's model, which is finish a novel, draw a line under it, and start the next one. And so that's kind of the career I'm going to try to follow here. So wish me luck.
That's awesome. I just interviewed a woman who did 50 books in 5 years.
Oh, that's
insane, right?
That's
she's
insane.
done. She's done. She said that's it for a while. Like she pushed herself to do it, and then she was like, "I'm done," and walked away. Like she wrote everything she could possibly think of in 5 years, and then.
I think I've probably, this boat runner I've written well over 50 times, so I think maybe that's
there you go. Yeah, there it is.
More efficient.
50 drafts in 5, right? Well, I'm sure the next ones aren't taking you 8 years to write. I mean, as you do them, right? You've now got a formula.
Well, I'm a little. You would think that, but I think so. For example, I spent in the last 8 years, I've written a handful of books and had 3 children, so I've been pretty busy. And so timing and scheduling is a bit difficult, but I guess I'm not terribly interested in the formula. I kind of always want to do something different. I want to feel like I'm in the deep end, figuring it out as I go. So when I was talking to my agent, and she was saying, "Well, how are we going to kind of build on this one with the next project? How are they linked?" I'm like, they're sort of a little different because I wanted to do something different. I always see, I learned a lot from this, and I think I can structurally and thematically do different things now because of that. So I'm always kind of looking to break from it. And so I've looked at like I've got about either drafted or mentally kind of planned 7 projects. And all of them are a little different from the last or grown from the last. So maybe a formula is a better way to go.
I don't know. I mean, now that you're teaching, is it awesome to see your students, like, they're working on their projects? I mean, like, that also has to be another aspect of what you're doing. I mean, seeing them come, teaching them how to do it, because you're like the ultimate teacher now. You've got this big novel out there, and yeah, exactly. So, I imagine like passing that on to them, is also awesome.
It's a lot. I mean, teaching is such a gift. I really love it. And as soon as I walk into the classroom, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is it. This is me. And the real advantage is not so much that I have a book now. It's that I recognize what teachers did for me along the way, and they treated me kindly but honestly,
right,
as a work in progress. So I'm not expecting my students to come with really great polished manuscripts, but that will help them get to the next one.
Right.
And when I have older students who are ready with good polished manuscripts, well, we polish them and we send them out. And so it's a lot of fun. And I guess just looking back, I realized where my teachers have helped me, and so I try to emulate that, and that's a real joy. And
wow,
it's a gift in my life.
Well, that's all. I am so happy for your success. I really am, because I enjoyed the book so much, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. And for everybody out there it is again. And I wish I had the cover, because it's such a beautiful cover. I love collecting books, and but it's The Boat Runner, and it's out there, and I see it all over the place. So I know they can get it anywhere. I'm going to have your links below, and I really wish you the most success, and I hope it ends up being a movie.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your good cheer, and you're sending the book off with such kind words. That's really nice of you.
Yeah, thank you so much for talking to me today. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.